So I've used a lot of different cameras over the years, but if I could only pick one to carry with me, this would be it. Whether it's documenting my life, filming cinematic video, creating content for social media, or taking high quality photographs, this camera can do it all. So in this video, I'll tell you what this camera is, discuss a few of the key features and my firsthand experience using it as a solo content creator. I'll go over a few of my favorite accessories and finally compare it to a few popular alternative cameras in different price ranges. So if you haven't guessed by now, the camera I'm talking about is the Sony a7C II. I picked up this camera a little over a year ago, and since then it has been my main camera for all of my YouTube videos, photography, and other creative projects. Now this is by no means a cheap camera, and it certainly doesn't make sense for everyone, and I wouldn't really call it an entry-level camera, but if that's what you're looking for, I will discuss some more affordable, great alternatives towards the end of the video, so definitely stick around for that. But for me and my needs, this camera was perfect and definitely worth the price. I'll go deeper into the specifics for both video and photo in the next couple of sections, but just overall, the camera feels great to use. It looks amazing. I went for the silver version, which gives you that sort of two-tone look that mimics classic film cameras. And of course, being a Sony camera, the build quality is top of the line. The dials are made of metal, which give it that premium tactile feel and satisfying click when you use them. It's got a viewfinder on the top left, customizable buttons and dials, as well as a convenient touchscreen that can flip out if you're vlogging. It also has a relatively compact body and is fairly light compared to Sony's other full-frame cameras and comes out to just over a pound or a little over 500 grams. The fact that you can get 33 megapixel photos, 10-bit color, full-frame video, and Sony's top-of-the-line autofocus in such a compact camera is pretty amazing. Especially if you enjoy capturing moments from your everyday life like me, I think it's really crucial to minimize the friction or hesitancy that you might feel taking out your camera in public or even bringing it with you in the first place. Depending on your lens pairing, I found that you can pretty easily fit the a7C II into most sort of everyday carry sling bags or even into some jacket pockets, so there's really no excuse to not bring it with you everywhere. All right, now let's get into my experience filming videos with the Sony a7C II. If you're coming from an APS-C camera or maybe an iPhone, you'll definitely notice a huge jump in the video quality with the a7C II. And this comes from the fact that it has a large full-frame 33 megapixel sensor that captures video in 7K and essentially shrinks that higher quality image down to 4K, so it looks extra nice compared to, I guess, normal 4K footage. It's kind of nerdy stuff, but just know that the video looks nice and crispy. It also supports recording in 10-bit color, 422, S-Log3, all of that good stuff, which basically means that you have a lot more flexibility in post when it comes to color grading your footage, so you can get your image looking just how you want it. This is something that I definitely noticed a big improvement coming from a cheaper camera that just shot in 8-bit color, where once I got more into color grading, I would find that the images would start to break down a lot quicker if I started to push the colors a bit too much, whereas with the a7C II, I don't really notice that nearly as much. It also has an active video stabilization mode, which I use a lot anytime I'm vlogging or shooting handheld footage. It doesn't really decrease the quality at all, but it will crop in your image very slightly, so that's just something to be mindful of when you're choosing your lens or focal length that you're using. Now, as for low light performance, it's pretty solid, I would say. It's got dual base ISOs of 800 and 3200, which essentially means that those are the 2 points that you want to set your ISO at to minimize the amount of noise that appears in your footage. It's not the greatest, since some of Sony's other cameras do have a base ISO of like 12,800, which is just insane. It's basically like having night vision, and it's something that I was a little bit worried about when initially choosing this camera, if I was going to miss out on some of that low light performance. But to be honest, it hasn't been that big of a deal for me so far, so I don't really have any regrets there, since most of the time I'm shooting in daylight or pretty decent lighting conditions, or in the rare circumstance that I am shooting at night or when it's a bit darker, I can crank it up to that 3200 ISO or even higher and just apply some noise reduction in the editing stage, and it's gotten the job done for me. But what the a7C II might lack in low light performance, it certainly makes up for with its photo capabilities. Now, one of the main reasons why I chose the Sony a7C II over some of the alternative cameras that I'll discuss in the next section is because it is a hybrid camera, so it can shoot excellent photos in addition to video. Sorry, my battery just died, but the battery life on this camera is good, I promise. It's got those big Sony batteries. I just didn't charge this one all the way. Anyways, as I was saying, with a flick of the switch, you can very seamlessly switch from shooting cinematic 4K footage to super sharp 33 megapixel photos, which for me was very attractive as someone who not only films YouTube videos, but also is really passionate about photography and other creative mediums. I really wanted a camera that could excel at both and would make switching between each mode very frictionless and easy. I've always enjoyed photography casually since I was a kid, and honestly just cameras in general. I think it strikes the perfect balance between the more sort of techie, nerdy side of me and the more kind of creative, artistic side. But over the past year, photography, in addition to filming videos, has become something that I want to take a bit more seriously and actively practice the craft and improving my skills every day. And the Sony a7C II allows me to practice both of those really easily because I can have different settings optimized for photo mode and video mode and easily flip between them by just flicking that switch at the top of the camera. So if I'm out vlogging or capturing some video footage, but I also want to grab a few still shots, then I can very quickly do so with minimal friction. Now, getting into some of the more technical features for photos, talked about how it has a 33 megapixel sensor, which might just sound like a big number, but practically what this means is that you have a lot more flexibility to crop photos in post and essentially zoom in without the quality degrading too much. This comes in handy a lot for me since I often won't nail my composition in the moment, so it's great to have that extra flexibility. And sometimes a mediocre photo can come out looking completely different with a bit of intentional cropping. This is where you really start to see higher quality cameras like the a7C II separate themselves from the competition, especially in comparison to things like the iPhone camera, which can definitely shoot great photos, but once you start to kind of crop those photos and maybe mess around with them a bit, they really start to break down very quickly. But you definitely have a lot more flexibility with the a7C II. Now, another feature I often use while taking photos is actually toggling on APS-C mode. Now, this mode is designed for using APS-C lenses on a full frame camera like this, so you avoid that weird vignetting, but you can also use it on a full frame lens and it essentially gives you a second focal length that's zoomed in a bit more. This is really helpful when I'm shooting on something like my 35mm prime lens, where I might feel like it's just a bit too wide for the shot that I'm trying to get, and then with just one click of a button, I can punch in a bit to something closer to like 50mm and get the shot that I'm going for. Yes, there is a slight drop in resolution when using that APS-C mode, but because the quality is so amazing to begin with, the photos still come out looking great. Now, quickly running through a few of my go-to accessories that I almost always use with this camera. First up, we've got this little thumb grip from SmallRig that fits right into the hot shoe, and this basically makes it a lot easier to hold the camera. It's already pretty comfortable to begin with, but this really helps if you're taking photos with just one hand, especially vertical photos. It just helps you grip the camera a little bit easier. I'll even use this when taking videos as well if I don't really care too much about the audio quality for the type of videos that I'm shooting. Now, as for audio, the built-in microphones work great for capturing ambient noise or the occasional dialogue every now and then, but if I want to get some better quality audio for a video or a vlog or something, I will attach the Sony ECM1 mic, which is a very nice compact shotgun microphone that can also just fit right into that hot shoe mount. Now, anytime I'm shooting video, I will use an ND filter on the lens, which basically allows me to use the proper shutter speed for my frame rate and get that natural motion blur. I've always gotten my ND filters from a company called KNF Concept. You've probably heard of them. They make probably the best value filters that you can get on the market. They are super high quality while still being relatively affordable, and they've got a bunch of different filters at different price ranges. I'll leave a link in the description to the specific ones that I use on my lenses. Now, I also keep this quick release plate from PGY Tech on the bottom of my camera at pretty much all times, which just allows me to quickly pop my camera on and off my various tripods. And finally, I've got this sort of cheap wrist strap that I use. I should probably upgrade this to something a bit more secure, but this is what I got at the moment. All right, now let's quickly run through a few comparisons with other popular cameras so you can see how the a7C II stacks up against the competition and better understand why I chose this camera over the others. All right, first up, we've got the iPhone 17 Pro, which is of course the latest and greatest from Apple at the time of recording this video. iPhone photography and video has gotten so good recently with the additions of being able to shoot RAW photos and ProRes raw video. You can really get some great images out of just this little phone. Plus, you obviously bring it with you everywhere already, and you likely already have one, so you may not need to buy a new camera. One of the main technical limitations of the iPhone or any smartphone camera in comparison to something like the A7C II is that smaller sensor size. But if your budget is tight or you're not really sure how seriously you want to get into photography or video, then I would definitely recommend just sticking with the camera that you have on your phone and really just trying to push the limits with that, because you can really get some great results with just your phone camera. That being said, I'm all for getting dedicated cameras, because although the phones may be able to technically take great photos and videos, they also double as distraction generating dopamine slot machines. The experience or mindset that you get into when capturing moments with a dedicated camera is completely different than just spamming away with your iPhone. Now, a more budget-friendly alternative that can still take great video and solid photos would be something like the Sony ZV-E10, which is under $1,000. And this was the first camera that I purchased when I wanted to take YouTube and filming videos a bit more seriously. It's not a full-frame camera. It can only shoot in 8-bit color, and it's missing some of those photo-focused features that the A7C II has, but you can still film in 4K and S-Log3, so you can learn how to color grade, and it can take pretty decent still images as well. This is probably where I'd recommend most people start if you're looking for a video first, photography second setup, or you're just getting into content creation and learning how to use a video camera. I would definitely recommend picking up something like this Sony ZV-E10 and maxing that out before graduating to the A7C II. Next up, the Fujifilm X100VI. This is probably the most popular everyday camera for photography right now. It's gotten a lot of hype on social media, and I won't lie, I've also been very tempted to pick one up because of the hype. The main selling point is that it's a compact everyday camera that intentionally limits you to that 35mm equivalent focal length, and also gives you Fuji's built-in film emulation, so you can, in theory, get excellent images straight out of camera without editing. I personally haven't used this camera extensively apart from testing it out in stores. If you've ever looked into getting one, you'll notice that it's pretty much sold out everywhere, which may or may not be a marketing strategy from Fujifilm to decrease the supply so they can keep the demand and prices higher. But despite the potential marketing schemes, people do genuinely seem to love the Fujifilm X100VI. It's got all these great features and a super compact body, but what it seems the biggest joy that people get from it is the experience of using it and the fact that it sort of makes them fall in love with photography again. But I'd argue that you can get a similar, if not better, experience with superior technical capabilities with the Sony A7C II. And although I really like the idea of the film emulation stuff with Fuji, I feel like if you're going to shoot digital photos, you might as well also learn the skills of editing photos. And if you want to shoot film photos, then maybe get a film camera and shoot film photos that way, but maybe that's just me. I still might pick one up eventually as a fun sort of travel everyday camera, but for now, sticking with the A7C II as my main daily driver. Now, in a similar price range to the A7C II, Sony also offers the ZV-E1, and this was the main alternative that I was considering getting instead of the A7C II. Obviously, I went with the A7C II, but in summary, based on my research, the main advantage or reason to get the ZV-E1 would be if you're pretty sure that you're primarily going to be using the camera to take videos. If that's the case, the ZV-E1 is slightly superior in terms of video, mainly when it comes down to the low light performance. It's got that second base ISO of 12,800, and that's kind of the main game changer compared to the A7C II, so you'll get really good low light performance. But besides that, if you're interested in photography at all, then the A7C II is definitely the one to get, because the video is pretty much the same as the ZV-E1 apart from in super dark lighting conditions, but you also get those 33 megapixel photos, you get the viewfinder, you get better weather sealing. But most importantly, let's be honest, the A7C II wins on vibes. That top metal part of the camera just looks way nicer in comparison to the cheaper plastic body of the ZV-E lineup of cameras. There are definitely better cameras out there specifically for videos or specifically for photos, but if you're looking for a compact all-in-one camera that you can bring with you pretty much anywhere, then you'd be hard pressed to find something better than the A7C II. Later down the line, when I've improved my video skills, or if I want to get into more serious video work for clients or making short films or anything like that, then maybe I'd consider picking up something like the FX3. But for my current needs as a content creator who's mainly taking photos and videos to document my life and share them on the internet, the Sony a7C II is the only camera that I need. Now, there are some other key accessories and camera gear that I often pair with my Sony a7C II to make the most of it, which I break down in this video. So definitely click that if you're interested. I'll see you in the next one.